what's up, America? Donald Trump meets with the Australian Prime Minister for a rare earth mineral deal and military deal. So another absolute win for President Donald Trump as he makes a rare earth mineral deal with Australia over $8 billion. On top of that, the United States is building nuclear submarines for Australia as a deterrent to China. As you know, China cut the United States off from rare earth minerals because, well, they're basically being dicks to us. So instead of negotiating with China, Donald Trump just goes around them and makes a deal with one of our allies, Australia. In my opinion, my favorite ally, Australia. Maybe I'm biased because I lived in Australia twice, but there's no greater friend to the United States than Australia. I would fight for them the same as I would fight for a state if it was invaded. That's how positive and supportive I am of Australia. So this is great. It bypasses the Chinese, it makes our economy and country better, and it strengthens Australia. You want to talk about a real Pacific partnership? That should be the United States, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and Korea and Taiwan. But Australia should be one of the heads of it because, frankly speaking, they're incredibly important to me.
Donald Trump just wrapped up a disastrous press conference with Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. Let me show you what went down. Donald Trump, again, just looking sickly. It's very bizarre. He started talking about the haircuts of the members of the press who were asking him questions. Here, play this clip.
President Trump, so a question to both of you, if you don't mind.
I love his haircut. I'm going to try that. No, I love it. Go ahead.
So, as we all know...
And then this reporter asked him a very good question. I mean, she said, why aren't you providing the Tomahawks to Ukraine? Why aren't you supporting Lindsey Graham and other Republicans in the Senate and who are trying to impose these serious sanctions against Putin and label Putin a terrorist? Watch how Donald Trump treats this female reporter. Again, it's really disgusting stuff. Here, play this clip.
The First Lady has done such an amazing job on Ukrainian children who were abducted by Russia. Would you support Senator Lindsey Graham's bill to declare Russia a terrorist state? And you have within your power the most powerful man on earth. Why don't you just enable Ukraine to finish this war tomorrow?
Well, if you knew anything about what you were talking about, you'd be able. You do. I don't think you do. Really. I don't think you do because it's a little more complicated than that. But it sounds easy. We're in the process of trying to make a deal. If we make a deal, that's great. If we don't make a deal, it'll be a lot of people are going to be paying a big price.
President Trump, so a question to both of you.
Yeah, I mean, Trump is totally unhinged. This was a very, very strange press conference. A reporter then asked Donald Trump, what's your response to the Prime Minister of Australia saying that there's a trade imbalance with Australia that's significantly in the United States' favor? I mean, the U.S. has a massive trade surplus. So why are you hitting your friend and ally Australia with these tariffs? And then Donald Trump just starts rambling about airplanes. You have to buy our airplanes. It's very strange. Here, play this clip.
Yeah, Mr. President, the Prime Minister mentioned that there's a trade imbalance that's very heavily in Americans' favour. Why does America slap such heavy tariffs on a friend and ally?
Well, we don't. Yeah. Well, we do in some cases. We do in many cases because we've been treated unfairly. But actually, the tariffs are very light. The one thing is you buy a lot of airplanes, so that helps because you buy a lot of the beautiful Boeings, the best of the Boeings. Boeing, and by the way, Boeing is really doing well. They have lots of orders, and they're really doing a great job. They make a great plane. But Australia, because of its location, which is great, but one of the things dictated by that location is you have to order a lot of airplanes. So I guess we have that advantage. They need a lot of airplanes in Australia, and that gives us a little bit of an advantage.
Another reporter from Australia then asked Donald Trump, so would you consider lifting the tariffs ever for Australia? I mean, given all the facts and data which shows that there's a trade surplus, Australia is...
The Australian Prime Minister meets Donald Trump in the White House, and they now sign a new rare earth minerals deal.
We're going to be signing an agreement that's been negotiated over a period of 4 or 5 months. And it was sort of good timing that we got it done just in time for the visit. And we worked together very much on rare earths, critical minerals, and lots of other things. And we've had a very good relationship. We've been working on that for quite a while.
Donald Trump on the world stage continues to show who is boss. where Kevin Rudd gets put on the spot for his previous comments made about Donald Trump.
9 months to get this meeting. Have you had any concerns with this administration, with its stance on Palestine, climate change, or even things the ambassador said about you in the past, the Australian ambassador?
I don't know anything about him. I mean, if he said bad, then maybe he'll like to apologize. I really don't know. Did an ambassador say something bad about him? Don't tell me. I don't. Where is he? Is he still working for you?
Yeah.
You said bad?
Before I took this position, Mr. President.
I don't like you either. I don't, and I probably never will.
You can see all the world leaders now respect Trump. They have to, because America is such a force, and everyone benefits by being partners with the US.
But we're really working on anything having to do with military protection, military ships, vehicles, guns, ammunition, everything, the whole thing.
Well, Australia's going to be a big part of this when we get to the FISA, and we're going to see how they assisted and helped with the UK to expose corruption worldwide. And it says avoid US data collection laws, Obama, public, dossier FISA, not public, look, Five Eyes UK and Australia, Trump targeting push, the Russia decoy meetings and campaign insertions. Then it's Obama's administration again. Obama, Hillary Rodham Clinton, Loretta Lynch, Brennan Clapper, National Security, White House, SIT, RM, OP, UK and Australia assist and set up. And I flipped it now, and it was these countries that helped set up all the corrupt people within their nations. Remember, FISA works both ways.
We've been long-time allies, and I would say there's never been anybody better. We fought wars together. We never had any doubts, and it's a great honor to have you as my friend. It's a great honor to have you in the United States of America.
We've got Australia coming back into the mix now, and Q also tells us Australia donations to the Clinton Foundation. Why is this relevant? More than you know, this is big. So we will soon see Australia's role within all of this. But remember, FISA equals the start.
I watched Trump's meeting with the Australian Prime Minister today, so you don't have to, and here's my overview. The craziest thing he said is that Hamas has been in control of Palestine for 100 years. The election that they won that put them in power occurred in 2007, so not even 20 years. Let's get into the meat of it. They spoke for 35 minutes, and Trump somehow mentioned Biden 9 separate times in 35 minutes. That's a Biden more often than once every 4 minutes. So right at the beginning, Trump accuses some cameraman of running into a mirror that he says is 400 years old, and he just brought out from the vaults. I guess maybe it was around 150 years before the United States became a country, or he brought it over from someone brought it over from Europe or something. I don't know how we end up with a 400-year-old mirror, why Trump feels it's important to put that out on display. Trump is talking about rare earth because Australia is one of the few places that mines and processes rare earth elements. And he says, we'll soon have so much rare earth that you won't know what to do with it. They'll be worth about $2. He doesn't know what rare earth elements are at all, and he's just comparing it to this gas price idea that he has of being under $2, which again is non-existent. The two of them sign a document that apparently is for some trade agreement, although none of that is explained, although the Prime Minister will say that it's an $8 billion pipeline, and then Trump says it's for rare earth. One of those can be true, the other one cannot be because they do not coincide with each other, but maybe the agreement covers a whole bunch of things, including rare earth, and also this pipeline that they're being talked about, but again, I would have no idea because they didn't explain any of that before they just went ahead and signed it. Then they're talking about subs. I mean, this meeting is all over the place. He's going to go and ramble a lot, but they're talking about subs. And Trump says that there was an agreement in place that I guess Biden had put in place to sell Australia more military subs, but that nothing was ever done about it. And now we're apparently pumping submarines out at a faster rate than anyone's ever seen before. He says again, because he has no idea how tariffs work, that China is paying us tens or hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs. Again, tariffs are a tax on you, the American taxpayer, the American consumer, so China is not paying us anything. He says that right now they're paying 55%, which again, across the board makes no sense to do. You want targeted tariffs if you want them, but that they could potentially be paying 155% on November 1st if they don't come to some other agreement that they have no needs to come to any agreement on the rare earth elements, because again, they process 90% of all rare earth elements, so they have a virtual monopoly on this and have no reason for us to negotiate with them on that topic. A reporter brings up the fact that Australia has a trade deficit with the US instead of the other way around. So asks, why are there tariffs being put on Australia? And Trump says, well, they need a lot of airplanes because they're so remote. So that's why we have tariffs. I mean, the best he can come up with is Australia needs a bunch of airplanes. A lot of this meeting, they're going to talk about China because Trump has no idea what's going on with China. And reporters are just trying to get him to say something stupid. I have to believe at this point is what's going on. But Trump says he thinks they're going to have a strong trade deal when they come out of South Korea in a couple weeks. Trump says the tariffs have been amazing because they've helped him solve 8 wars in 8 months. He's solved 0 wars in 9 months, actually, as of today. So I don't know what he's talking about there. And then he says that 4 or 5 of them were due to tariffs. So not all of them. And then he'll say that 5 of them were due to tariffs. So he doesn't even know whether it's 4 or 5. Last week, he said 6 of them were due to tariffs. Again, he has no idea what he's talking about, probably because he solved 0 conflicts. So 0 of them can be attributed to tariffs in any way. Oh yeah, you know how last week he said that no president had ever solved a war? Now he says, I don't think there's a country in the world that has settled any wars, period. Apparently every war that ever started in the entire world is still ongoing except for the 8 that Donald Trump claims that he solved. He says Australia pays a very low tariff. They're paying 10% across the board, which is very high, especially for across the board. That's not, again, how tariffs work. For example, you would use tariffs in order to increase the production of a certain item or element or whatever in your country that's being produced in another country for a slightly lower price by raising the import cost of that, which the American consumers would then pay to make it more valuable to process or mine that element or material here in the United States. That's how a tariff works. But he says 10% that they're paying across the board is relatively low. He also says that we're the hottest country in the world, and a year and a half ago, now he can't just say a year ago because he was president 9 months ago. Now he says a year and a half ago we were dead. He says anything can happen in war, but he has no idea what's going to happen with Russia and Ukraine. He also says that Operation Midnight Hammer, and this he said before, they had been practicing 3 times a year for 22 years, and that there was never a president who allowed them to do that operation before, even though he was president for 4 years. So while he's still claiming that he solved the war in the Middle East, he's saying that Hamas is in violation of the agreement on the war that he's claiming that he settled. And he says that Hamas will be eradicated if they don't comply. Now, don't get me wrong. They've already gone and killed tens of thousands of civilians and claim them to be Hamas militants when they're not at all. They're women and children more often than not. So he's just claiming again that Israel is going to go in and kill more women and children because he said that he said this just last week, that he knows everything that Israel has done and he stands behind them 100%. In fact, so much so that he says if he asked Israel to, they'd go in 2 minutes and handle the whole deal. But he doesn't need to do that because there's 59 other countries who would all be willing to do it. He's referring to every country that supposedly signed this agreement that he says that he claims is 59 different countries, except for the United States. He says, we will put no boots on the ground because it doesn't affect us. He says that we're way ahead of China militarily in every way, except for they're building way more ships. But we're going to fix that. As he said, we're going to build 19 new naval vessels in addition to ordering 28 new B-2s. Again, this makes complete sense because he's the president of peace. He's starting no wars and he's ending every war across the world. So obviously we need to bolster our military. It only makes sense. Oh yeah, he also claims that we're way ahead of China in AI, which apparently is the most important thing. And then as part of that says that there's been $18 trillion invested in the United States and that number is going to be over 20 trillion by the end of the year. Absolutely not true. I fact checked it too many times to make it worth it doing again. He says Russia and Ukraine are losing 5,000 to 7,000 soldiers a year, but that wouldn't have happened if he had been president because this war never would have happened. He then says Australia really has a good prime minister. And then he looks at the prime minister and he says, will you agree with that statement? A reporter asks him, hey, you're the most powerful man in the world. Why don't you just enable Ukraine to end the war tomorrow? And he says to the reporter, you don't understand the situation. To which they argue, I do. And he goes, no, you don't. Regarding China again, because so much of this is going to get back to China and the rare earth elements, he says that if China doesn't stop their export controls on the rare earth elements, then they will have to pay us hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs. Again, he doesn't understand tariffs. But regarding tariffs, because he thinks he understands them, he says tariffs are high on other countries based on if we like them. Russia pays a 0% tariff. He did not put tariffs on Russia, so I guess he must really like them. Trump says over an unspecified period of time that China has taken trillions of dollars from the U.S. apparently just without anyone in the U.S. knowing about it, and built their entire military with the trillions of dollars they've taken from the U.S. And then he says that putting large tariffs on China means that we don't want to do deals with them anymore. He gets every single one of his hats, all of his merchandise comes straight from China. And then he says, we're not going to allow for China to not purchase soybeans from us anymore, which again is what they did the first time that he put them in a trade war. So I don't know what he's talking about. And that's about all that he said in 35 minutes. Insane. Again, 9 Bidens in 35 minutes. For those of you who are curious, my second Patreon video will be going out today. I just finished recording it and I'm in the process of rendering it so that I can upload it to Patreon and Substack and on here for subscribers. I do ask you to please stick in there with me as I'm figuring this out. I'm doing news over there separate from Donald Trump's speeches, as well as cooking videos. I'll be going over EOs, lots of stuff. I'm still figuring it out, and I'm no expert at recording. I'm no expert at script writing, and I'm no expert at editing. So I'm doing my best. Stick with me as I figure it out. I promise the videos will continue to get better in the same way that they've continued to get better on here. That being said, I have people to thank. This person says, keep up the great video reports from James D and my wife, Roz Diamond, D-I-M-O-N. She's cooler than me. Check her out here, ROZDIMON.com. Enjoy from James Dawson. They sent a book, A Little Life, which people have told me is sadness porn. I didn't find it that way. I thought it was just a good book. And then Strange New World. This person says, not sure exactly how you use this, but hope it comes in handy. LOL. Love your content. What you do, I could never do, which is listening to that idiot for more than a few minutes. Thank you for sharing the highlights. From Marnie G. They sent a grill grate remover. So it's for my big green egg. And it's a hook that goes in so I don't have to touch the grate. That's how you use it. Marnie. This person says, enjoy your gift. They sent me a vinyl album of Food and Liquor by Lupe Fiasco. And then they also sent me another gift with another note. It says something to smash things with and then something to chill when you're done. Thanks to you for all you do, from Ashley J. Those are both from Ashley J. She also sent a hammer. I do some blacksmithing as well. So that's what the hammer is for. So I will smash some things and then I will listen to a good record on vinyl. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it so much. And like I said, the Patreon video will be out in not too long. It's still in the process of rendering. And yes, I do know that nothing that I described about what he said from the Australian Prime Minister made a whole lot of sense. It didn't make a lot of sense to me either, but I just wrote down what he said because that's all I can do here is report the news to you as I hear it.
Remember how I told you the longer this government shutdown lasts, the worse it's going to get? Well, we are now 20 days into it, and worse is almost here for more than 40 million men, women, and kids who get food assistance from the U.S. government's SNAP program.
And an important role of the government is to provide that safety nest for those with the least among us. Today, I think New York announced that they can't continue taking new enrollees because of the government shutdown in SNAP, in our food stamp program. We're going to run out of money in 2 weeks. So you're talking about millions and millions of vulnerable families, of hungry families that are not going to have access to these programs because of this shutdown.
That was the Secretary of Agriculture who said last week that by November 1st, an estimated 42 million Americans could be shut out of the SNAP program. Recipients just wouldn't get their benefits. Now, just to be clear, SNAP is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It used to be called food stamps, and it is the government program that provides food benefits to low-income families in order to supplement their grocery budgets. Now, according to the Agriculture Department, about 12% of U.S. residents receive SNAP benefits, and as of 2024, that SNAP benefit averaged about $190 a month. According to this letter, though, sent to all SNAP administrators in all states nationwide 10 days ago, if the government does not reopen, there will be insufficient funds to pay full November SNAP benefits. The acting administrator of SNAP went on to say in the letter, in the interest of preserving maximum flexibility, state SNAP offices should not be sending out monthly issuance files to vendors. And without those issuance files, vendors cannot load SNAP benefits onto those EBT cards. And if the benefits aren't loaded onto the EBT cards, then SNAP beneficiaries don't have the money to buy the groceries they need. It's a ripple effect. So if you do receive SNAP benefits, what is this going to mean for you? Well, the fact is the government is shut down because, as I've been reporting, Congress cannot agree on how to allocate money to each government department. The Department of Agriculture is one of those government departments, and it oversees SNAP benefits. So until the shutdown is ended, legally, they can't spend any money, including on your SNAP benefits. Each state, though, is handling this differently. Some are doing exactly what this letter says and cutting off all November SNAP payments. Some are reportedly considering sending out partial payments in November, and it's also possible that your state may pay for the benefits up front themselves and then try and get some kind of reimbursement from the federal government. But that is all in limbo right now. So if you are in this program and you are concerned about your November benefits, I highly suggest that you check your state's SNAP program website to figure out if there's anything you should be doing right now to prepare yourself. It's also possible, because of the shutdown, the Trump administration could do for SNAP what they say they are going to do for the WIC program and the 7 million low-income women and children who rely on that food assistance program. The White House said that it will temporarily use tariff revenue to pay for WIC. We will have to wait and see if they choose to do the same thing for SNAP.
All right, Supreme Court update here. So when Trump sent troops into Portland, a federal circuit court judge said, no, you don't get to do that, and barred him from sending any National Guard troops into Portland, Oregon, and wrote an extremely thorough decision in that case, saying that what the Trump administration is saying is happening on the ground does not match what's actually happening on the ground. There was no organized rebellion, etc., yada, yada, yada. There was no insurrection, and barred him from doing that. Same thing happened when he tried to send troops into Chicago. A federal district court judge in that case issued an order barring Donald Trump from deploying National Guard troops anywhere within the state of Illinois. The Chicago case went up on appeal, and a Court of Appeals panel in, I think, the 7th District unanimously upheld the lower court and said Trump's not allowed to do this with National Guard troops in Chicago or the state of Illinois. The Portland case went up on appeal to the 9th Circuit, and earlier today, the 9th Circuit Court building is just a few blocks from where I'm standing right now. The 9th Circuit issued a decision saying, yes, he can send National Guard troops into Portland. Within the last couple days, Donald Trump filed an emergency appeal on this issue with the United States Supreme Court, and he wants them to make this decision now. And now there is a conflict between the circuits. The 7th Circuit and the 9th Circuit are in conflict with one another. And the U.S. Supreme Court could weigh in on this issue as early as tonight. Today is Monday, October 20th, I think. And again, I fully expect this Supreme Court to rubber stamp whatever the hell Donald Trump wants to do. I don't have any hope or optimism left as it relates to this current United States Supreme Court. And this current United States Supreme Court, this current lineup has completely altered the role of the United States Supreme Court over the last few years. They have never met a precedent they didn't want to overturn. Affirmative action, Chevron, abortion, in the Dobbs case, Roe v. Wade. They're overturning 90-year-old precedent on the shadow docket without even having full briefing, oral arguments, or a full written opinion. They're overturning 90-year-old precedent with a paragraph. And John Roberts, has always said that he's an institutionalist. John Roberts is not an institutionalist. He wants a unitary executive, and he does not want black and brown people to be able to vote in this country. He does not want them to be represented in the Congress in any way, shape, or form. And that Voting Rights Act case, oral argument was on that last week. They did away with Article 3 in 2013. Can't remember the name of the case. It starts with an S. Then they did away with Article 5, and now they're about to do away with Article 2, which deals with racial discrimination and gerrymandering and things like that. So this current lineup of the United States Supreme Court has effectively made themselves part of the executive branch, as long as the executive is a Republican. So fuck John Roberts and fuck the current U.S. Supreme Court, because they're going to let this dictator wannabe Cankles McTaco Tits do whatever he wants, and that's bullshit.
Another day of what is the president's administration doing besides their jobs? The other day, President Donald Trump posted this AI video in response to the many demonstrations being held all around the world, over 7 million people showing up against him and his administration, and he posted this video with him wearing a crown and dropping feces on all the protesters, including specifically Harry Sisson. Harry Sisson is a 23-year-old online political influencer. For context, Harry Sisson asked the president why he was quite literally shitting on him, and J.D. Vance replies saying he'll ask. Yes, that being the vice president of the United States, who should be working his ass off right now in the government shutdown. But no, instead of doing their jobs right now, they're all on social media hating on their own citizens. Remember when our presidents and their administration had, I don't know, fucking law degrees? How about human decency and professionalism? Y'all were upset over President Obama wearing a tan suit, and Donald Trump can go on social media and quite literally shit on his own American citizens. Y'all don't give a fuck.